So, a very good afternoon to one and all. I'm very happy to share this session. And the topic of today, I don't think this is the first time I'm speaking on it. I have shown this technique in my workshops of NDT, which I definitely conduct year on year. I have been conducting. So, I had the good fortune of beginning to walk the baby steps in the profession of pediatric physiotherapy way back in the year 1988 when there was nothing which was called as NDT workshop. With our hard work and our struggle and our experience, we could walk baby steps, we could gain milestones. And my first NDT exposure was in the year 1991 with a trainer who had come from US. And then after that was subsequently a lot of interactions with the GINA International, Inc. International, who had held several NDT workshops. The formal NDT certification happened in 2006, after which there was never a look back. I've done one and many NDT advanced certifications, right from the baby to the gate, to the taping, to the NICU, and problem solving advanced, which I did last year. So NDT has definitely given me a lot of input into observing clients and seeing how the different areas, what we do, and how we observe and how we give our therapy affects their participation. That is one part of it. Looking at sensory integration, I love babies and I love self regulation and sensory integration. So that is one topic of my interest. They call me the baby whisperer because my forte is 0 to 6 months of life, and I'm also a life coach and an NLP trainer, and my other half is being the heartfulness trainer. So that's the short me. I know I wear too many hats, but I do remove them when time is essential. So today I am wearing the hat for you all to explain. I've also done matrix, matrix training right from the beginning. We have been one of the pioneers. So yes, today I'm going to speak to you about myofascial release, what we normally term as MFR, and we hardly give it a lot of importance. I think most of you all, as college students, may have heard your professor saying myofascial release, usko MFR dena hai. That will really cause a difference in what you're looking at. So that's the reason I've put the talk as the name is freedom to function, because when you're doing a release, when you're actually releasing the fascia, it gives you a lot of freedom to use, freedom to participate, and that is what we need to understand, that as therapists we need to cultivate or make use of that freedom into their participation. So that's the topic, and the hands behind signify that the most important part which we as therapists use in all our activities are our hands, but especially so when you're doing soft tissue release techniques, the connection what you give from the hands into the body of the client is very importantly to be looked into, and your mind, body, spirit, everything should be set into giving that release. How do I go ahead? What's happening? I'm stuck up somewhere. This is funny, it never happens. Okay. Okay. My presentation today is thanks to my mentors, Judy Berman, Gail Ritchie, Brenda Lindsay, and sorry, my PowerPoint is jumping. And of course, the original work of Dr. Barnes. I thank the little clients who have come to me and given me the opportunity to use myofascial release on them, the technique on them, and experience what it is to give them a relief from, oh God, why is it jumping? I have not told it to jump. I've not given it a release, it's just jumping. Sorry. Just give me a second. I'll have to investigate why this is happening.
No problem, ma'am. No
Just
problem.
share again. It's jumping. No, I have not put it on automatic transition. So that's exactly what in myofascial release we should do. The technique of, it's actually teaching you in person that amount of force what you put onto the system. It's a highly resilient system, as all of us know. As human beings, we are capable of healing ourselves in every organ which we are sort of injured or some sort of trauma has happened. All of us know that the moment our mind decides we can definitely come out of situations. There are very many examples in literature which have shown us this. So coming to falls. So day before yesterday, I had a fall. I fell on my knees. It was like Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and it really hurt me. It bruised me a bit, but that was it. I didn't realize till yesterday what was happening. I cleaned my bruises. Both the knees were bruised like kids. Yesterday in the evening, I had a massive headache. And I was thinking, why am I having the headache? Is it the work which I had the whole day? What is causing that bit of tingling also? And then I realized that my trapezius had gone really numb, and my cervical spine, I could not move around. My cervical extension was also limited. I Then I thought back, why did it happen, and I realized I had fallen down on my hands to prevent myself from the fall. And you can imagine what took the strain of the fall without injuring me. It was nothing else but the fascia. But yes, it reacted. It reacted after a bit. It went into spasm and it said, "Oh, you have to rest." So I had to go to the clinic and tape myself and take ultrasound and the myofascial release, and it really helped me. So fascia is protective. Fascia protects every single person from injury, from trauma, whether it be physical, emotional. You imagine if there's some emotional thing what you're going, a relationship, someone has said something to you, and you actually become tight in your trapezius, your pectoralis, you go into flexion, and if you remain there for a long time, you become stiff. So that's exactly what goes wrong is the fascia and nothing else. So fascia, the stresses and strains, as you can see in this slide, affect the fascia. They affect the extracellular matrix as which is seen. This is the normal one, A, and the B is which is disrupted. Similarly, here you can see A which is normal and B which is disrupted. You can see also here how trauma affects the fascia in the neck region, in the DL region, and in the thighs. So whenever you have any injury, whenever you're sitting in a misaligned posture, rest assured that you will definitely sort of injure your, hello. I have to pray for every slide, I think. There's something wrong. So all of us may have realized in the times of COVID, there was a nice, yeah, there it comes. Sorry, I hope it stays there. So all our backs, if we have realized in the last 1 year, if we have not used our backs, we have all gone a little bit rounded. I realized it because I was not using my muscles which were behind in the scapular region, and it is the main law which it follows. It is use it or lose it. It's very important. Fascia supports the body completely, but the moment you don't use fascia, you don't use your body well, you're definitely going to lose your alignment. And this has happened to, I'm definitely sure, to all of us. But basically, if you look at the IT professionals who have been working from home with their laptops slouched, fascia has definitely gone a disruption in all of them. So the rule, as we all know as therapists, is use it or lose it. So the facial concerns, or as we see, I'm looking at pediatrics. Does it affect our children? Yes, it very much affects our children. If you can see, and if the videos run well, the little one on the right, I don't know why this chapter is coming between. So the little one on the right was a preterm born baby in the first month or the second month when he had come to us. That was him. Now, with therapy, this boy improved. By around 10 or 11 months, he had come up to standing, and the mother felt, Abhi ho gaya mera kaam. And that's exactly what happens with all our kids who have come to us early from the NICU. If they recover, they definitely feel that, okay, my job is done. But they don't understand and they don't remember that it is because of the efforts put in by the therapist that things have gone good. So this boy, you can see, has now started having a little bit of issues, and he has come back to us again, showing crouch, that is his thigh muscles, the fascia in the thigh, the fascia in the DL spine is affected, and he is showing a picture as if he is going into a spastic diplegia. So that is what fascia is. If you don't use it in a proper way, you definitely tend to lose what is happening, the function which is gained. So what is fascia? You can see when I was thinking of fascia, I was thinking yesterday, how do I explain it to you all without actually being with you all? And this is the best example I found. If you have seen mothers carrying bags when they come to you with their babies for therapy, you see their bags have lovely compartments and everything is kept in place. Secondly, if you see a baby bag, it has a quilt around it which covers it well. So that's exactly what fascia does and what fascia is. It helps us to segregate every single cell. It is like a cocoon around a cell, it's a cocoon around a structure, and it protects the structure from injury. As opposed to this bag, which you see, which is a flimsy vegetable bag, which may break, which may give way. The bags which are given to the babies or to the mother to carry the stuff from with the babies around are very secured. So fascia is just like your baby bag. What is myofascial release then? Myofascial release, as described by Barnes, is a whole body hands on approach. It is not only for treatment, it is also for evaluation. So, it's a hands on approach for evaluation and treatment of the human structure. But the focus of the evaluation and the treatment or the hands on is on the facial system. So what is fascia? Now this is the best. When we started giving myofascial release, when Judy taught me in the year 2006, and I started, she said my mentor Ban, she just mentioned him, and then I did a workshop with Gail Ritchie and Brenda Lindsay. All of them were talking about Dr. Barnes, and I now when I look at literature has now started coming up with lot of papers on the facial system, and the very recent one, which was in 2020, describes facial system as a three-dimensional continuum of soft connective tissue which contains fibrous, loose and dense collagen that permeates the body. It incorporates elements like adipose tissue, adventitia, neurovascular sheets, aponeurosis, everything. I mean, there's nothing which I can leave behind. You can see it incorporates everything. It involves, entwines, interpenetrates all organs, muscles, bones, nerve fibers, providing the body with a functional structure and providing an environment that allows all systems in the body to operate in an integrated manner. So you can go back and read this paper. There's a very wonderful paper on embryology of the facial system, which is come in the journal 2020. So now what are the functions what fascia serves us? If all of you all have gone to the gym for exercises, or even if you all have done yoga exercises which give you good amount of alignment, you all understand that it permits the body to retain its normal shape and thus maintain the vital organs in their correct positions. It helps the body to resist mechanical forces internally and externally. It has maintained its general structure and purpose over the millennia. So if you go and read when did fascia start, which organisms it started, evolution wise fascia has been present in the smallest of organisms. These functions are evident in the earliest of multi-celled organisms in which two or more cells were able to stay in contact, and the main purpose or the main function which fascia served that time was to communicate and to resist the forces of the environment through the connective tissue. So in human beings, physical appearance, protecting function, general well-being, water storage, mobility, it is also a sensory organ, it generates force, it gives you stability. So all this is what your fascia does, and we hardly think it is important and we give it least importance. So fascia is, if you all know, is divided into three layers. A superficial fascia that just lies beneath the skin and connects the skin to the muscle. This also surrounds and infuses with muscles, nerves, arteries and bones. The deep fascia is which is visceral, which is abdominal, pleural, pericardial, connective tissue. And the deepest one is into the brain and your spinal cord, that is your central nervous system. So when you're looking at the image of the system, okay, Dr. Barnes says that fascia has an image, like all of us have social images. So fascia also has the image. So what is the image of the fascia? What the Instagram, the Facebook picture, etc. It is elastin, it is collagen, and it is ground substance. So elastin lends elasticity and tissue memory. So all of us have Facebook photos which we look around, or we have dry photos which we look. So it lends elasticity. It gives us a sort of a framework. Okay, there has been something which has happened in the past, and your system is sort of used to that type of resistance which you can take. Then collagen, it lends strength, form, and shape, like your LinkedIn profile. And your ground substance, which is a gel-like liquid, like your Instagram, which gets, keeps changing, it keeps flowing. It's a gel-like liquid that allows fiber mobility as well as cellular circulation. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Remember the image of fascia. So fascia helps to reduce friction between the muscle fibers, and it creates an ease of motion. So the ease of, okay, I should be known to the world is very much there within every single person, and that's the reason we all of us use social media. So that actually reduces or connects us with the world very well. So these are the three elements, these are the three elements which give the image to the facial system, so that all of us can understand the importance of why fascia is within us. Now, continuity. We have to understand there is a lot of continuity which fascia has. There is a continuity of networking. I'm talking of networking in these two slides, from head to toe, so that you'll remember it, from superficial to deep and macroscopic to microscopic. So that is the main one of the main functions which fascia serves, that it is continuous. You can see this is like a spider's web. It is continuous. You don't know from where it is begin and where it ends. So it is from the head to the toe, from in to out. Everywhere fascia envelops your organs, tissues, cells. Now coming to myofascial release. The moment you say myofascial release, all of us think of these rollers, we think of the things what we use in the gym or massage. So everyone thinks myofascial release is massage or all these techniques. So of course, I mean in a broader sense, when I went through literature, it definitely means that it is any work which directly impacts or indirectly impacts the facial system. But that is not what we look at as therapists. I hope this chapter stops. This is really neat. So it has many forms. Some of them say, oh, it is some TOT or craniosacral therapy, or they're giving manual therapy. So anything which is going to affect the fascia is myofascial, and release, give the release to the fascia is MFR. It can be craniosacral therapy, it can be mobilization, it can be TOT, it can be any therapy. Even Tai Chi, yoga are now coming under the umbrella of myofascial releases. So for today's talk or today's pediatric talk, the definition which is given by Reggie Bohemi, it is an application of local sensory input in form of sustained gentle pressure and traction, or light traction without pressure. The release process is initiated. How is it initiated? After keeping the hand, you wait till the temperature increases and the energy level of the tissue, creating a greater degree of fluidity in the body's ground substance. I told you, you go back to your fourth slide where we had where we had spoken of Facebook, your Instagram, and your LinkedIn profile, and that was the profile of your fascia. Results into a three-dimensional elongation process which is directed into the patient's facial system, followed by the therapist who maintains the sensory input. Okay, this definition is very important. It is the application of local sensory input in form of gentle pressure and traction, or light traction without pressure. It's a release process which is initiated by increasing the temperature and energy level of the tissue and creating a greater degree of fluidity in the body's ground substance. It results into a three-dimensional elongation process directed into the patient's system, and this is followed, you have to follow it up by giving some amount of input. Now, when you're looking at pediatric physiotherapy, we have to look at what postural control means to us, how does motor development happen, how do adaptations happen of motor control, and then apply myofascial release. Again, see what is happening in motor control. Look at myofascial, look at facilitation of posture and movement, and encourage participation. So it forms an in between. It is like a club sandwich, sandwich between many things. You look at every paraphernalia, you may give your NDT, again give myofascial, do an adaptation, do a myofascial release, facilitate normal posture and movement, and encourage at the end, very importantly, participation. So that's how a pediatric physiotherapist looks at myofascial release. It causes unwinding. So the moment You feel, all of us had felt during our workshop, we were really relaxed. It was as if going to the retreat center in for about 8 days. That's the type of unwinding a single myofascial release is capable of giving, because it actually unwinds, or the tangled fibers, the myofascia inside, are sort of unwound. So it causes an unwinding in the system. Now, what happens at the, where does it affect? This is known as the intrafacial circulation loop. So this is based on the Michelin Schmidt in 1977. The fascia are densely innervated by interstitial tissue receptors. There's a lot of reading and a lot of neurology which goes into it. The autonomic nervous system uses their input plus that of some of the Ruffini endings to regulate local fluid dynamics in terms of an altered blood pressure in local arterioles and capillaries, plus in plasma extravasation and local tissue viscosity. This change is felt by the practitioner. So you manipulate, you stimulate a mechanoreceptor, you look at interstitial and Ruffini endings. This directly affects your autonomic nervous system, causes changes in local fluid dynamics, and you get a tissue response. This is how it really affects. Now, what happens after doing all this? After causing a response and your manipulation of the tissue, everything happens. Your autonomic nervous system fine tunes your hypothalamic axis, and this also affects your muscle tone. So this is the hypothalamus loop, which is based on the gel horn. Now, note that very slow deep pressure leads to a more parasympathetic state. This activates the more tropotropic anterior lobe of the hypothalamus to lower the tone of the body musculature. This is what we have to understand, and that's where it comes hand in hand, very like a tool. It's like a tool in your kit. When you are seeing a child with hypertonicity, just unwind the child and you get a good amount of length to work with. So let's see what happens and how we really work on the skin. Now, we have to understand that as therapists, when we are looking at the skin, it is a largest sense organ. It has many ways of perceiving the universe. It is approximately 18 square feet and weighs about 8 pounds. That's our skin. I'm talking about our skin. It is 6 to 8% of the total body weight, having so many sensory receptors that are connected to spinal cord by about half a million nerve fibers. The tactile fibers vary 7 to 135 per square centimeter, and the tactile surface of the skin is the interface not only between the body and our world, but between our body, mind, and the world. So whenever you're giving myofascial release, don't get, oh, release dena hai, oh, ho gaya. Talking to your friend, giving myofascial release, it does not make sense. When we are giving myofascial release, we have to understand we are reaching to the core of existence of that individual in whom we are treating. So be very much present when you're giving myofascial release with the client at that moment. So being in the moment is important. Touch by itself can be powerfully therapeutic. It can serve as a diagnostic tool and also give you proprioception. Now, proprioceptive sense is really least understood by many people. So, sorry, again it is jumped. But okay, feeling is more important than knowing. So Dr. Barnes says when you're giving myofascial release, you have to actually keep your cognitive component aside and follow the client. When you're giving a release, understand how you're giving the release and feel what are the changes which are happening in the structures. Now, two important properties which define myofascial release. One is the tensegrity, that is it is a combination of tension and integrity, the islands of compression floating in a balanced sea of tension. If this video runs, you are lucky, or else you can go and see it on the website. I'll give you the link. Just type in tensegrity, you can go and see the link. So what he says is that these are the ligaments which connect the bones. Okay, so that is the fascia which connects the bones. You can see here the rubber bands, not the ligaments, the rubber bands which connect the bones. So that is the fascia. So he says that the way in all directions, if you try to expand that structure, where does it break? It breaks in the point of least resistance. So the weakest point, it gives way. Suppose you say, oh, my ankle is giving me problems always, or I'm getting pain here always. So that is your weakest point. The moment you identify with a myofascial therapist where in your body is your alignment going wrong, and if you correct that, uh, this will also be taken care of, or your ankle pain also gets taken care of. This we had seen and we have really looked at it, and now research also is proving it. So this is what is called as a principle of tensegrity. The second principle which is applied to myofascial release is the principle of thixotropy. Now, if you all have seen paint, or if you have painted your homes, you know that in some days, if the paint is just come and kept by the painters, they say, oh, there are some days which we are not coming and we are going on leave. The moment they come back after their festival leave, and you put the paint up is completely thick and inside is still liquid. So that is thixotropy. It is a history dependent change in fluid viscosity. The longer the applied shear stress, the lower is the viscosity. In recent years, thixotropy has become reserved for history-dependent changes in the so-called short-range elastic component. So that is thixotropy. So these are two principles which work hand in hand with your myofascial release. So it is like working on a pool of fish, small fish put inside that. So actually you can feel your hand. And Judy used to always say your hand has to be as if it is on a jelly. It is, you're keeping your hands on a jelly. You should have that much amount of force, but not too, don't push it too hard. And feel the hand moving through the texture of you feel the texture of the fascia. Where is it feeling hard? So before starting the entire session, you feel where you're looking at blockages, feel where the resistance is coming, and then put your hands on the point of maximum resistance, unwind that, and then let your hands follow the patient's signals where to go next. So these are the steps. Allow the patient to guide, give up cognitive control, and allow the response of the patient's body to guide you. It's very essential. It is not that I'll go here, I'll go there. That is according to what my principles are. Principles of myofascial release are very clear. You have to follow the response of the patient's body to guide your hands. Okay, so the technique which we use is the cross hand technique, but we don't overtly use our shoulders. So get ready, use the crossed hand technique, light pressure upward, feel the barriers, then maintain traction. Sorry for the spelling mistake. Maintain traction. The hold is always for 90 to 120 seconds. Focus on traction more than pressure. So don't give pressure, give traction. Relax yourselves, relax your shoulders before you're giving myofascial release. That's a step one. Step two is lengthening. So in lengthening, the barrier fades. You feel that okay, whatever stiffness I was feeling is now gone. Now feel for the movement of the hands, in which direction your hands are going. Make appropriate adjustments. Trust what you feel and then respond to the system. That is your step two. Step three, feel the completion. Always understand, keep in mind that it is a slow process. Release the traction very slowly, not that you have done and chalo, it's done. You have to slowly remove your hands and feel the tissue whiten under your hands. Step 4, postural integration. So you make the patient get up, give him a little bit of water, understand how he is or she is, encourage the patient to use the new alignment and range of motion which is now available. Now, what are the different changes which can happen? The autonomic system is the first to react, so the skin may become red. You may feel vibration or heat in the tissue. There may be temporary rash which may come. The patient may say, I'm feeling a little lightheaded. There may be changes in heart rate, respiratory rate, and body temperature. Soreness which may last for a few days, and they can be physical or they can be emotional stress also, because it is a release. Understand, it's a release. The patient may also cry. So if the patient is about to cry, you have to be able to take care of the emotions as well. So following the lead is very important in this. Now, contraindications. Strict contraindications are febrile state, systemic or localized infections, open wounds or sutures, healing fractures, acute rheumatoid arthritis, and hemophilia. Precautions: gentle release when you're using it with osteoporosis or maybe osteogenesis imperfecta. You should be very careful not to use this technique. Yeah. Looking at hypotonicity, rely on the facial stiffness, because many times what happens is that these children who are hypotonic, suddenly they use the stiffness to maintain themselves. You have to be very careful when you're releasing a child with hypotonia or children with fluctuating tone. Children with athetosis rely on the stiffness again to slow themselves. Posturally placing and holding in a functional activity always helps. In cases of ataxia, your rib cage myofascial release helps them in the anterior part of the trunk. How do I go ahead? What is happening? Okay. When there is a severely involved child and they have come to you post surgery, you have to see. Excuse me. I'm sorry, my PowerPoint is just jumping like crazy. Check the breathing pattern and take care of the scar tissue if they have had any surgeries. That's what you'll do in a severely involved child. Can you help me, Latika? Go next. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not. So, different children or different categories of kids who come to you, even if it may be a child who's coming as a sports person or one who wants to jump into sports. So, first, always do a complete assessment of your RR, HR, look at the postural sway, look at the alignment, misalignment, body reactions, scan, atypical alignments, look at how the musculoskeletal structures are, study the ABCs of posture, and then go ahead with the myofascial release. Always understand, give up power struggle. Anticipate what is going to happen, come next, and then lead. It's like a dance. So you give the partner a sort of a area to perform, and then you give the turn or maybe the move. So that's how myofascial release is. You have to look at how the child is reacting to your hands and then go ahead. Now, understand this is a very powerful technique. It's an extremely powerful technique which can cause lot of changes which may be immediate or they may come after a few days. Advise drinking fluids. Understand that cells, each cell has a memory. In release, the children may cry or even the individuals may cry. They may breath hold or they may have a gazed eyeball. They may have a gazed look. Check the speed of which you're giving myofascial release. Now, again, to end the whole thing, I was looking at one more Japanese person whom the book of five rings is what I was reading for when I was preparing for this. And two people, one is a Spider Man with his web, and this person who is Miyamoto Musashi. There is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within, everything exists. Seek nothing outside yourself. So, everything what is there is within your fascia. The moment you do a facial release, top it up by giving good postural integration, things are much better. It is like the Spider Man who's ready to help humanity. Having said this, I end the presentation. I will try to show you a few videos. One video in which I have done myofascial release on one of my patients. If my laptop behaves well, just give me a second.
At the outset, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Snehal Deshpande ma'am for taking time out from her busy schedule and giving us a new outlook of understanding what the fascia is. And hope we continue to have a good connection between mind and body and do the justice to our pediatric patients. Thank you so much for your time, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bless you all. Take